tonight.
On my kicker tonight, the cabinet has finally made it formal that Kenya will indeed bid to host the 2027 Africa Cup of Nations football finals. What started off as an out-of-docket utterance by Trade Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria is now the official position of the government that Kenya intends to co-host Africa's biggest soccer event if 2027 finals is successful. If this is real, this time, then it should be very exciting news for the millions of soccer-loving Kenyans. But if any of them is happy but cautious, that should be perfectly understandable. You see, Kenya has been down this bidding road a couple of times before, and it always somehow ends up in tears. In my younger years, I drowned in excitement when Kenya won the rights to host the 1996 Africa Cup of Nations. And as if to assure me personally, the then Kenya Football Federation, KFF, put up this huge signage on the wall of their offices at Nyayo Stadium, proclaiming the Secretariat of the Africa Cup of Nations. But it ended in heartbreak. I remember the visit by the Confederation of Africa Football CAF inspectors. They appeared visibly shocked when they were taken on a tour of the proposed venues for the Nations Cup. One of the venues was literally a grazing field, complete with some skinny urban cows and a few very hardened donkeys. In another proposed venue, the so-called stadium had no walls or stadium stands. I remember the embarrassed inspectors tagging the loose barbed wire fence of a place that looked more like a low-value plot for sale than a venue for a prestigious tournament. The inspectors made no demands on Kenya. They quietly left, and the 1996 Cup of Nations finals was moved to South Africa. And just a few years ago, Kenya successfully bid for the 2019 Africa Championship, an equally important soccer event in the continental calendar. When inspectors toured the venues, the story was not so different from that of 1996. The stadiums were in no better shape than they were in 1996, and the organizers swiftly transferred the hosting rights to Rwanda. So, it is not enough to express the intention to bid or even win that right to host the Africa Cup of Nations. Organizers of Africa's most prestigious football festival have standards to keep when it comes to staging of such a tournament. Yet some of their requirements are about the regular, basic, logical stuff. Our biggest stadium, for example, the Moi International Sports Center, Kasarani, remains a borderline facility for international events. While a good job has been done to raise the standards of the playing surface, the terraces of the stadium remain a literal hardship area. The lower and topmost terraces have no seats. Fans usually sit on the hard concrete. Now, while the concrete may have worked for our political events, including presidential inaugurations, high-level sporting events expect a stadium that have clearly numbered seats and each fan to sit on their own designated seat. Nyayo Stadium was recently renovated and now meets this basic requirement. Organizers also expect that the football venues are well lit, not with security light, but with appropriate modern lighting suitable for sporting arenas. I'm told the newly renovated Nyayo Stadium may not meet the threshold because of its old lighting grid. So the government has its work cut out. Beyond the bid, it must demonstrate that we have the facilities that will meet the basic requirements that were not met in 1996 and were not met in 2019. Now, most of the much-hyped county stadiums would, for example, not make the cut if any of them were submitted as proposed venue for the African Cup of Nations. Some of them are mere metal contraptions, hurriedly put up, more with politics than sports in mind. Co-hosting with neighboring East African nations makes us for a strong bid, no doubt. It spreads the responsibility around the region and reduces pressure on Kenya on the number of venues it must have for it to be accredited. Though an adventurous fan would really have loved to see a pure Kenyan bid. Imagine that big North African clash in Kinoru Stadium, Meru, or a battle of Central African titans in Olentimama Stadium, Narok, or even that nail-biting West African derby in the historic Camarine Stadium. I think I'm dreaming. That is my kicker.